Hello. This is a presentation on the composer Franz Joseph Haydn for Music Appreciation 101 with Professor Michael Sundblad of TNCC. So, an overview of Franz Joseph Haydn. He was a famous Austrian composer in the classical period. He was called Father of the Symphony and Father of the String Quartet because of his important contributions to these forms. And he was also a close associate of Mozart and Beethoven. Some history of Franz Haydn. He was born in 1732 in a village near the border of Hungary. His parents recognized how skillful he was in music, and so when he was really young, he was apprenticed to his relative, Matthias Frank, who was the choir master and schoolmaster in Heinsberg. And he actually never lived with his parents again. While he was at his uncle's house, he learned to play both the harpsichord and the violin. He also became very good at singing treble parts in the church choir. And while he was at the Frank household, he remembered being hungry a lot and humiliated at the state of his clothing. In 1739, he was brought to the attention of George von Ruder, the director of music in St. Stephen's Cathedral in Vienna. And he moved to Vienna a year later, where he worked the next 9 years as a chorister. This is sort of like schooling for him. He got to learn Latin, voice, violin, and keyboard, and I think he learned 1 or 2 music theory lessons while he was there. And while he was there, the teacher usually forgot to feed him and the other choristers, so he remembered being very hungry when he was there. In 1749, he got old enough, and he wasn't able to sing the high choral parts anymore. And then he was kicked out of Stephen's Cathedral because he carried out a prank on a fellow chorister by cutting off his hair, I think. This is where he sort of just roamed the streets trying to find work. He worked as a music teacher, a street serenader, and some other occasional. In 1752, he began to work as a valet accompanist for the Italian composer Nicola Porpora, and he learned from this guy the fundamentals of composition. And a big step in completing his music theory knowledge was he studied Gradus ad Pomassum by Johann Joseph Flux, and he also studied the work of Bach to complete his knowledge of music. While he was working for the Italian composer, his reputation increased, and this led to his first full-time job as a Kapellmeister, or music director, for Count Morzin in 1757. 4 years later, he married his wife. This was not a very good decision for him because him and his wife did not have any children, and they were very unhappy in their marriage. And unfortunately, due to the times, they could not get a divorce because that was frowned upon. In 1761, he became employed by Prince Paul Anton, who was the head of the Esterhazy family. He worked here for a long, long time, and he produced a lot of work here. In 1779, a big thing happened for him. There was a change in his contract, which permitted him to publish compositions without the Esterhazy's family approval, and this basically gave him fame, and he achieved international popularity with this contract. In 1791 and 1794, he visited England and conducted large symphonies, and it was a huge success, and it made him really rich. Unfortunately, a couple years later in 1802, he was physically unable to compose music, and he died when he was 77, shortly after an attack on Vienna by Napoleon. Franz Haydn was very short in stature, and this is probably because he was underfed when he was young, and he's actually pretty ugly. He was a survivor of smallpox, which meant his face was pitted with scars, and he just looked bad. Personality-wise, he had a robust sense of humor, and this is evident in his love of practical jokes, and also in his music. In his music, you can actually see humor. He's also a devout Catholic with many friends. Now here's my colleague, Michael Bjorkman, and he is going to talk about some of Franz Haydn's music.
Alright, here on this slide we have some of his major works, and as David said earlier, one of his, what he was known for was mostly his humor, and his most famous example is the sudden loud chord in the slow movement of his Surprise Symphony. He also had many other musical jokes, which included numerous false endings and the remarkable rhythmic illusion placed in the trio section of the third movement. Okay, what you're listening to now is Symphony Number 45 in F sharp minor. It's known as the Farewell Symphony. It's from the year 1772. Texture would be homophonic, and it is in the sonata form, which is A B C A B. This was written for Prince Nicholas Esterhazy, who David described earlier, named for the last movement in which all the musicians stopped playing, leaving only two muted violins. Okay, the piece you're listening to now is Symphony Number 100 in G major. This is considered the military symphony from the year 1794. This is in homophonic texture. The form is ternary ABA. This is the 8th of 12 London symphonies, and named for the second movement, which features prominent trumpet and percussion effects. Okay, the one you're listening to now is the String Quartet in C major, Opus 76, number 3. This is the Emperor Quartet from the year 1797. This texture is homophonic, moving towards polyphonic. The form is AABCC in 4 variations, and named for the line, "God Save Emperor Francis," which would later be used in the German national anthem. Alright, we have some questions for the audience today. We played 3 pieces during our presentation. Did you notice when the music changed? And if so, what factors caused you to realize the change in music? Out of the 3 pieces that were played, which one was your favorite and why? And based off of name alone, which major work do you think would be your favorite and why? Alright, that does it for our presentation. Here are the sources we used today. Thanks for listening and have a nice day.